Today on the CTV News at 5, more wild weather.
Helpless, frustrated, antsy, walking around, pacing around the house. What do I do? What do I do?
Southern Albertans watch in disbelief as yet another severe thunderstorm slams the area. Plus, the not-so-peachy hailstorms cream Tabor corn crops.
CTV News with Jackie Scantlebury.
Good afternoon. Wild weather is becoming the norm in southern Alberta these days. Not only did the latest storm bring hail and rain, it also brought these funnel clouds, although it's not believed any actually touched the ground. This is from Colehurst last night. The storm also brought hail, which clogged Lethbridge storm drains, causing flooding on some city streets. Keaton Gerberback reports.
Guess what? I got 7 pairs of socks on and my feet are still wet.
This was the scene on St. Edward's Boulevard Monday around 4:45 after a powerful thunderstorm rolled through the north side community, clogging storm drains and flooding streets. Water was as high as the front bumper on some vehicles. This car tried to drive through the puddle and stalled. City crews were called in to help the storm system recover, and blockades were put in place to stop motorists from entering the high water. Deborah Schroeder says she couldn't believe the amount of water that came rushing down the street.
We were outside. My daughter called. She went out. She says, "Mom, you got to get outside." And then we just came over, and this is what we saw. And we took pictures, so I have pictures, but it's still a scary thought to think that now it's happening here.
Homeowners stood idle as they watched the water creep closer and closer to their property, hoping the water would go down. A few car owners went to their vehicles to collect personal belongings in case the water rose. This resident decided he wasn't going to let water flood his car, so he and his family moved it to higher ground.
Pretty frustrated, that's for sure. Doing some rentals in the front, so I couldn't park it in the driveway. And didn't expect to get that much rain. Helpless, frustrated, antsy, walking around, pacing around the house. What do I do? What do I do?
Parts of the city were hit hard during the storm. As much as 48 millimeters fell in some areas. City officials say the reason the water rose so quickly was because the storm drains plugged after the pea-sized hail and large amount of rain clogged them with debris from trees. They say with the amount of rain that fell in such a short time, the system just couldn't handle the volume of water.
In the case of the tremendous amount of water we had yesterday in a short period of time, it really surcharged the storm sewer mains, and I don't think there was anything that could have really been done to prevent it. We asked citizens to clean the catch basins around their own houses, around their own residences, because it does contribute to overland flooding.
This is what St. Edward's Boulevard looks like today. The sun has come up, the water has receded, and residents can now get back to their daily lives. They say this street has flooded before in the past, but nothing like what happened yesterday. Keaton Gerberback, CTV News, Lethbridge.
That same storm that shredded trees and flooded streets in Lethbridge also caused extensive damage to some farm fields east of the city. Hail and the strong winds damaged farm machinery and pounded fields of wheat, barley, canola, sugar beets, and corn. Terry Boat caught up with several farmers who were out assessing the damage today.
Like most of the farmers in this area east of Coaldale, Jack Neufeld and Ed Donkersgood have made their rounds, checking field after field to see just how much damage was caused by Monday's hailstorm.
It cut a swath that affected a lot of acres around here for sure. I'd never seen anything like it. It just shattered down, and it was really hard to appreciate unless you saw it.
But I'd just come over the canal and I could see to the south, I could just see this big white cloud.
Most of the crops in the path of the storm have been wiped out. Farmers are estimating losses at 80 to 100%.
This is the third time it's been hailed on this year. So this is the last arrow. Up until then we could survive, but now it's going to be a long time.
The fields are devastated, and the winds that came with it ended up throwing some of these pivots and twisting them all out of shape. So it's, again, something we haven't seen here for, over a generation.
Farmers who live in this area are still trying to comprehend the force it took to create this kind of damage, a force that would overturn pivots and level crops of grain, sugar beets, corn, and canola.
Never seen anything like it, but I guess we're not the only ones suffering. I mean, High River and Toronto, everybody, right? We're all in the same canoe.
Insurance adjusters have already been in the fields to have a look at the damage, but they say it could be days or even a week or longer before they'll know the full extent of losses or whether some of the crops will be able to recover. Terry Vogt, CTV News, near Coaldale.
Now, farmers in the Taber area are assessing damage after several hailstorms have swept through that area over the weekend. The storms caused damage to a variety of specialty crops, including potatoes, sugar beets, and the corn.
Hopefully that these leaves are still enough to feed the plant. You can see that they're split.
Taber corn grower David Jensen says this crop will recover, but the hail damage will affect yields and in some cases delay harvest. Jensen says all of the Taber corn growers have been hit by the storms and the first corn will be ready on schedule around the beginning of August. But there may be periods where corn isn't available for a few days.
I think a lot of it's going to come back, but what it's done is just push the start date a little later than normal. We will probably start the 1st of August on one piece, and then there's going to be a lull because the second crop that comes in, because we see it in stages, is one of the ones that got hit.
Now, prior to this weekend's storms, Jensen says this year's corn crop was looking to be one of the best in years. Well, Dory's up next with the weather, but despite how hot it's expected to get over the next few days, the province is recommending you stay out of local rivers. With all of the flooding across southern Alberta over the last few weeks, there are concerns of high levels of E. coli coming from the Calgary area. Environment and Sustainable Resource Development officers are currently testing local rivers and reservoirs. The speed of the river, that's still a concern as well, along with debris and other contaminants. Okay, Dora, you're going to tell us about how great and hot it's going to be in just a second. But I have a question for you. Last night, I heard reports of the rainfall anywhere from 5 millimeters up to 50 millimeters. What's the right answer?
Yeah, it is. It varies. The official reading at YQL, or Lethbridge Airport, is 4.3 millimeters of rain. Anyone living in Lethbridge knows that most areas, I mean, you saw the water running down in the news reports. I mean, we got hammered with water here. It was just the angle of the storm, just the way it kind of tripped over the airport didn't get the full reading of what the other areas got. So here in the main core of Lethbridge, right around 35 millimeters of rain, but we know there was lesser amounts and there was even more amounts, nearly 50 millimeters of rain in some areas. So yeah, wide variety on the scale as far as the precipitation went.
Okay, thank you, Dory. More weather's coming up. And the cleanup is beginning in Toronto after a massive rainstorm there triggered flash flooding. Major roads suddenly turned into rivers and commuter trains were stopped, then swamped. As Naomi Parnes reports, lots of people had to be rescued.
As daylight shone down over the GTA, the fallout from last night's record rainfall became clear. Rosedale Valley Road full of trees instead of cars. At least 10 trees toppled. On this roadway in Mississauga, a mudslide. And for homeowners, especially in Etobicoke, which was one of the hardest areas hit, their basements now pools.
It was coming out of the back of the house. The whole place was just saturated and just went down and came under the house.
It was up to my knee, I guess, and yeah, you can see what came of that.
Last night was unprecedented.
Toronto's mayor will be touring the hardest hit areas later today and is calling for everyone to cut back on electricity, saying the system is hanging by a thread. He commended emergency crews for their swift response and residents for coming together, but is calling for a review.
I'm asking the city manager to undertake a complete review of the city's emergency response procedures so we can fully understand what worked and determine what needs improvement.
Toronto got the most rain ever in one day, smashing records, even surpassing Hurricane Hazel. The images startling, a city under siege by water. Traffic literally came to a standstill as portions of the Don Valley Parkway became a river. Cars submerged in water, driving through what looked more like a waterway than a roadway. This car up instead of down, stuck in a sinkhole. On this street, water spouting everywhere. But even in the worst of times, signs of a city coming together. Yes, this is City Councillor Doug Ford, truly helping his constituents by directing traffic. But it's clear this story is far from over as homeowners and the city grapple with the cleanup and the costs of Mother Nature's wrath. Naomi Parnas, CTV News, Toronto.
While that city gets back on its feet, it's still tough going for a lot of flooded homeowners here in southern Alberta, adding to the misery of many denied insurance claims. Now, just as a group of Calgary homeowners was going to publicly call out TD Insurance, that company has announced a change of heart. Coverage became an issue last week when some homeowners complained insurers were denying damage claims caused by sewer backups. Now, TD Insurance says that it will cover that damage and it will be reaching out to customers in the coming days. A big boost for businesses in West Lethbridge. City Council has approved the $34 million sale of 66 acres of land in the Crossings area to a major Calgary development firm, Royup Development. The area will include retail, office, commercial and residential properties, and the property will be developed in stages over the next 6 to 9 years. Time now for our weekly feature of Farm TV.
The 2013 Farming Smarter Field School, held just east of Lethbridge, took a little different look at farming.
Yeah, the theme of this year's field school was Down Under, Can You Dig It? And what we were hoping to accomplish with that is to talk about some things that we don't typically talk in field school. So basically everything in the ground. You know, rather than looking at the above ground crop, there's a whole world beneath our feet that we wanted to explore that has very big impacts in agriculture. We started off the morning with 2 entomologists talking at the exact same time. We split the groups in 2. And the first group went with Dr. Jeremy Hummel from the Lethbridge College. And he talked about the world of cutworms and wireworms. Now we're hearing more and more problems with cutworms and wireworms. And when it comes down to it, the truth of the matter is there's a lot of work to be done in that area. So it was a great opportunity for growers to learn how to identify cutworms, their damage that they cause.
Farm TV is brought to you by DA Building Systems.
Straight ahead, Dory's going to tell us just how hot we can expect it to get tomorrow. First, though, a good day on the markets as a lot of markets rebounded.